Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another week of the Let's Talk Social Innovation podcast. I hope you've had an amazing start to your week, but if not, we can kickstart that right here. I'm your host, Ian Kahinde, and as y'all know, we got to get through this week's bulletin board. So first off, join FHC on February 18th for a special screening of the 2002 film Drumline in celebration of Black History Month. This comedy drama film follows a naturally gifted drummer from Harlem as he helps his Atlanta College marching band defeat their longtime rival. More updates to come. Honors HOCC points will be provided. Next up, join us for Envisioning a Just Pittsburgh exhibition and reception held as part of the August Wilson African American Cultural Center's monthly artful networking series, Intermission. It will be a celebration of creativity, diversity, and a vision of a more just and equitable Pittsburgh. This will be a free arts encounter, and there will be a bus leaving Oakland at 6:10 p.m. for the August Wilson Center. The bus will leave the August Wilson Center at 9 p.m. More details will be provided regarding where to meet the bus. The link to sign up will be in the description. Next up, the 2025 FHC Research and Creative Expression Symposium will be held on Friday, March 28th at University Club on Pittsburgh's campus. Apply at the link in the description to below to present your work by February 26th. Lastly, applications are now open through Wednesday, February 26th for paid summer fellowships and internships with FHC's Offices of Research and Community Engaged Learning. Programs include the Frederick and Keefe Public Service internships, along with these fellowships: Brackenridge, Community Research, Creative Arts, Health Sciences, and more. Check out the link in bio to learn more. So just about now, you'll be seeing a big sheet with all the different QR codes and links for all the descriptions of this week's bulletin board. So it should be up right about now. And now, with everything aside, bygones be bygones, the real reason we are here is the incredible Alivia Pierce, honors student and double major in Africana Studies and Art History. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited.
I'm very excited too.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm glad you're here. So getting into this week's episode, we'll be talking about Olivia's backstory, what made them who they are today, and then we'll be going through their Zine collection. And then lastly, in the second half, we'll be talking about queer identity. So everything else aside, take me from the beginning.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, so very north. And I'm the youngest of 4 girls, which, yeah, that was a time, growing up with, mostly women in my household. I mean, my dad's around, but, I grew up in a very, matriarchal space. So I think that's really defined my journey through especially academia, considering how it's sort of a flip-flop, especially in what I'm studying and stuff, but I feel like it set me up pretty well.
So let me ask you this: did your father ever, imbue any masculine tendencies into you?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm a lot like my dad. I would say, yeah. Especially for emotions. Sometimes I do keep that stuff inside because I'm I need to suck it up and, perform. But I feel like a lot of that is just capitalistic or just I feel like that is such a social thing that we're constantly told. And by we, I mean a lot of different people. So, yeah.
I feel you on that. So then, being raised in Erie with your sisters, how was that experience going through the public school system and whatnot?
Honestly, that going through the public school system, really hardened me. I feel it was a very real raw look at our education system, but also just class. So I went to a college prep high school, but there were people who paid tuition to go that lived outside of the city. So just class consciousness, I had that from a very early age, especially coming from a working class background. I could really recognize the differences between me and my peers, and then especially here. at the PWI.
Speaking of that working class background, what did your parents do?
So my mom, she doesn't work, and my dad, he worked well, my mom does work. She was a homemaker. So, and that is like a full-time job.
Very much so. An important job.
Yeah. And then my dad, he worked at a prison. He's retired though. So, yeah.
Congrats to him.
Yeah, he's very happy. He has a lot of free time now.
So in terms of family dynamics, with you being biracial, how was it with the extended family?
I mean, I didn't really know my grandparents too much growing up, especially on my mom's side. I mean, I still don't like know my grandparents on that side of the family. And a lot of that has to do with racism, and ideas about crossing racial bounds in that kind of way. And I mean, I was like around my grandparents on my father's side growing up, but not as much as I guess like I would have liked. But as I got older, like we became a lot more closer. And yeah, I love to visit them. Happens on the rare occasion now, but.
You on that. So going through high school in this prep school scenario, did you enjoy high school?
Honestly, I did. I'm like a very like extroverted person, and I feel like I could talk to literally anyone. And I've always been that way, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with being raised in like a society, or not a society, but I mean like a home with mainly women, and also being the youngest, and also the fact that I'm a Taurus, just so much. I've always been a pretty like social person, so I didn't really have a hard time making friends, like at any point really, unless like like people being like racist, because then it's like okay, well that's crazy, but yeah.
Tell me more about the tourist part of you. I haven't heard that yet.
Okay, yeah. I'm not like too much into astrology, but when I meet people and they're like, "Oh, like what's your zodiac sign?" and I'm like, "Oh, I'm a Taurus," and they're like, "That makes so much sense." But like I feel like Taurus people are known to be very grounded individuals, and very like, I mean, kind of lazy. Which I mean, yeah, I am a little bit.
I mean, double major only.
Yeah,
Always so much.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, oh, this is Taurus behavior. But yeah, just very like grounded people and who are very passionate. And yeah, I also like gravitate a lot towards other earth signs or just other people who, I mean, are introverted. I gravitate towards a lot of introverts. I thrive off of like being social. So, and which is another trait of like Taurus people. Yeah. So, and actually funny enough, my papa and my uncle, and probably a few other people, their birthday is 2 days after mine.
Oh.
Yeah. So, like, and it makes sense because we're all so much alike. Like, my papa and my uncle Aaron, and then like, our brains are just, I feel like we're a lot of the same.
Like 3 peas in a pod.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, let me ask you this. Where did your love for history come from?
I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. So I feel like in like our community, there's always that one old head that's just like, yapping about like something that has happened. And I like in our history. And I feel like before, like I would be like, oh, there he goes, like my dad or like, my papa or like my uncle or someone, just like some old person in my family, just, here they go. But honestly, like, I feel like a lot of people are like that and like in our community because I feel as though like, we do lose a lot of our history. So, the oral tradition of telling like, anecdotes about our past and our family and, that stuff is so precious to us. So I feel like I've always been raised in that kind of environment to think like, be proud of your identity and be proud of who you come from, whether or not there's documentation of it, or we just know it through word of mouth. Like it's a sacred thing. And it's also like a sacred process to engage in that. So I've always been raised around people like that. My dad he was a history major in undergrad. And I've always been around people who prioritize that.
So moving forward, how did you know that Pitt was it?
Well, my sister went here, and Alexa and I are 16 months apart, and then my older siblings, they're like in their 30s, almost 40s. So Alexa and I, we both went to Pitt. Well, I mean, I'm still here, but yeah, I figured like, let me go to a school that gives me a good deal, and Pitt did give me the best deal. And I was familiar with the city because my sister, she went here, so I figured why not? Nice to have like a built-in buddy. And then yeah.
So how's your academic experience been here at Pitt?
I mean, it's been like good. I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that I've had. Even like despite being at like PWI or like, like class is very apparent here. And just like other things as well. But I am very grateful because like without coming here, I don't know what my life would have looked like, what I would be studying. When I came here, I was going to be a chemistry or history double major. So, I mean, I realized by, being here, I don't want to do that. And I feel like, yeah, I could have gone to another school, but I don't know what that would have looked like. So I'm proud of the fact that I went here and got to do all of this amazing stuff and meet all these amazing people.
So speaking of shifting from being a chemistry double major, what made you pick up Africana studies?
Well, I knew that I really was passionate about history and like specifically our history. So, I figured like, okay, art history is at least like a good point of starting at when I realized I didn't want to do chemistry anymore. And I had already known like I'm going to study art history. I love art and I love history. But I sort of felt like, and like I'm not throwing shade or anything, and I realized that I'm at a PWI and a lot of other departments are like this as well. But I just felt as though the conversations being had about like Black art and Black history were not necessarily doing it for me. And I felt like I wanted to pursue that in a lot of different ways. So I was like, should I like major in Africana as well, or should I do like a certificate or something? And it was just like a lot of talking to other people about my experience, especially other people in the art history department. Shout out to Gretchen Bender. Love her. She's my first mentor. And she really helped me like navigate this journey of, what do I want to do? And what am I passionate about in terms of, art history and what does that mean? Like, what is art to me and what is like history to me? And then I noticed that I was frequently taking so many Africana classes that I might as well add it as another major. Because I was, at that point a sophomore and I'd taken, I don't even know how many classes, but almost fulfilled the requirements. So, and I know everyone over there, so I was like, why not? So, yeah, I'm very happy.
So how did you get into your zines?
So, I've been making zines since like high school. I love like crafts. I love arts and crafts. I'm a crafty person. I love scraps and making beautiful things out of them. So, yeah, I've always been making art stuff. But I guess I've never really considered it to be like art or, important enough to consider it that. But then, it makes me think like my years here made me realize that anything can really be art. And because art for me is like a communicative thing, an object and idea and things like that. So I didn't really start to realize like, I've been like making zines for a really long time or like making art until, I guess was like a freshman, sophomore, and I was like, like I want to do more with this. Like this stuff it deserves scholarship and recognition, and like this, like making a zine over like a research paper or like a video or a documentary or something, like they're all the same. They're all telling the same thing. And then I did the Brackenridge Fellowship with the Honors College, so shout out to Brett Say. And I remember thinking, well, like, do I want to do like, a 20-page paper about, something? Or do I want to make it more, communicative, like I said? Do I want to make it more accessible to people? Whether that be through language or physically tangible, stuff, or, a lot of exploring that. And I was like, yeah, I want to do a zine. And yeah, I love zines. I make them all the time. And there's really amazing creative people who are making them and demonstrating true integrity and passion about a plethora of topics, but just for me, history, some other I was reading a zine the other day about abortion access. So it's a pretty interdisciplinary and amazing thing. Mm-hmm.
So would you be able to explain potentially for our audio listeners what exactly a zine is?
Okay, yeah. So I'm not the best at explaining things, but a zine is it's not magazine. That's a different thing. But a zine, I'll show you mine actually. So a zine is a often physical form of dispersing information. So it can also be digital, but mainly they've been made physically since at least the 60s, probably prior to that. And it's just a very accessible way of disseminating information about, usually a niche topic. So like I said before, I was reading one about abortion rights, or I saw one from a Pittsburgh artist, I can't remember who, and they made one about different dogs they had seen. And really it's just you can make it out of anything. You can fold up a piece of paper and it can have 4 pages and just color on it. And that's a zine. They're very cute, they're very fun, they're very informative, and yeah, it's amazing. It's a really great mode of telling people things, and sharing community. Shout out again to the Black Zine Fair. You can find them on Instagram or just look them up. They're very cool. If you really want to get into Black zines from, Black artists, creatives, curators, writers, poets, anyone. Mm-hmm.
So, and what's the difference between a zine and a magazine?
So this may be wrong, but this is just from my understanding. Mm-hmm. But a magazine is more so a magazine, Architectural Digest, or that kind of stuff.
People's.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily magazines aren't necessarily informative. They can be, but not in the same way as a zine. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I definitely urge people to make their own definitions for things and understanding of things, because I have no authority in defining what this stuff is, but this is just what it means for me. So I consider a zine to be a book, but other people may not, and a lot of it's just semantics and stuff. But yeah.
So as you can see around us, we have several pieces of what I would call history and many zines on the table. Olivia's going to walk us through all of these.
Yeah, okay. So I brought a lot of stuff with me. And all of this helped, my understanding of what a zine is, research, scholarly inquiry about a lot of stuff, and Black ephemera, and cool people. So yeah, I recommend everything that I'm about to go through. So I actually got this as a Christmas book, or gift, from my sister Alexa.
Black market vintage.
Yes. Okay, sorry. Listeners. Should I okay. Yeah, Black Market Vintage. Find them on Instagram. They have a shop in New York City, and I've never been, but I hope to go soon. They just released this book. There's a foreword by Spike Lee.
Ooh.
which is amazing.
I love Spike Lee.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll read a bit of the back. So, this one-of-a-kind treasure trove of Black cultural ephemera from the entrepreneurs behind the retail shop Black Market Vintage uncovers Black history through vintage objects that tell Black stories and cultivate a more complete collective Black memory. So I eat that up. I love things. I love Black history, and through like objects and like books and all of the stuff that they have in here. I mean, they have like a shop, so you can buy like a lot of different things. So, you know, church fans.
Church fans.
Yeah, love yourself a good church fan. Or, you know, books, of course, a lot of photographs. And there's like some stuff about like archiving too, because essentially like any of these could be a part of a Black archive. I mean, yeah. So
let me ask you this. What does this book mean to you?
This book, and I know this is so ambitious, but I want to make a book like this. And I don't know like what that would mean for my future, but I am a collector of things, and things of importance and history and ownership through so many different people. And I really aspire to have something like this in my future. So I'm manifesting it. Whether that may look like, you know, like a cool shop, you know, like what they have, or, you know, continued research into stuff. Yeah. This is like literally
the goal.
And also like there's really cool people in here. If you're in like, you know, like the memory field, which I like to say, but I mean that could be like museums, archiving, or like research and stuff. Really cool people. Yeah, I could talk about this forever. I love this book. Okay, and I also love this one. So, All That She Carried. So the journey of Ashley Sack, a Black family keepsake. So I read this book actually as a part of an introductory class with Gretchen Bender.
Shout out Gretchen.
Yeah, shout out Gretchen in History of Art and Architecture. And I can't remember the name of the class, but she completely like reformed my thinking of what art is, and what we consider to be art. You know, like, do you consider like Ashley Sack to be art? Or like other like historical things, do you consider like a mummy to be art? Or, you know, do you consider like a historical piece of object to be art? You know, like just a lot of ideas.
What do you define as art?
I consider art to be just a communicative object, which is a term that I heard in Gretchen's class. So yeah, I'm gonna keep saying it. But honestly, art can be anything, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't have to be like a painting, you know, by some like old white dude. Like, art can be so much. Like, oh my God, like all this stuff here, this is art. Like people, like the fact that like people like look how we look is like art and amazing. Yeah.
I like to say God took his time with Black women.
Exactly. Yeah. Like he like made art. He's making art. Yeah. I could go on and on about that, but this is a beautiful book. It's essentially about, well, I'll read this. So, a renowned historian traces the life of a single object handed down through 3 generations of Black women to craft an extraordinary testament of 2 people who are left out of the archives. So, it's essentially a sack from, like, you know, a woman who this is carried down through generations, because, you know, enslavement. She was enslaved in South Carolina in the 1850s and was unfortunately she was forced away from her daughter, I believe. Yeah, her daughter. And yeah, so like her daughter's name is Ashley. So this is Ashley Sack. And, you know, it happened to carry through generations in her family. And it makes you think a lot in terms of, you know, art itself, but also Black history being obscured from archival record, and what that means in terms of like enslavement and navigating that, and how this story resonates with so many other people, because we all, like, I feel as though like in our own community have like so many different stories from enslavement and how we came to be, because like it's not just like how like I just didn't come here like miraculously, like people died and struggled and like were enslaved in order for me to be here. And I think a lot of this sort of goes into like practicing gratitude and stuff, but in a long-winded way, I really recommend this book. It makes you think about a lot of stuff, and it's a very, very great starting point into, like, if you're interested in archives, it's a very great starting point. So, yeah, there's that. I also brought a medal that I won for my research. I've won a few, but this one was the one that I found in my drawer. I won this for like presenting my research to a few people, and it's from, I'll plug them, the National Association of African American Honors Programs.
I was gonna say, it sounds like a few important people.
Yeah. So this was one last year, Halloween weekend actually, and yeah, I went with a group of people here at Pitt, and it was very fun. It was very nice to be around other people who are like-minded and, I mean, like celebrating Black excellency, but more specifically African-American excellence, because none of us would be here without African-Americans, fucking struggling and stuff. Like, especially, yeah. So I could go on and on about that, but I'm very grateful for all the people that I met and talked about my research too, and all the people that I learned from. So, yeah.
So take us through your research.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I feel like my research, like, I don't like to say my research started in undergrad. Like, really, like, I have always been really interested in research and, like, history, because, like, I've always been, like, learning about stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to know more. Like, my dad would say stuff, and I'd be like, I need to Google this. I want to know more. I need to go read. We need to read. We need to learn things and be critical thinkers and ask questions about stuff. And, like, I guess, like, my intrigue about Black history, like, started, like, with my dad, maybe, or, like, just old heads in my family, and just wanting to know more about that stuff, and then just opportunities amounting up to me being here, and I could, get funding for research. So that was nice. But yeah, like, I'd say, like, sophomore year when I, did the Brackenridge Fellowship, that was a pretty nice, like, I mean, wonderful opportunity to actually dig deep and learn a lot more and have more, like, access to resources that I, like, hadn't before, through that funding. So yeah, I'd say, like, sophomore year, that summer was very amazing. And I ended up making a zine from all my research. The zine, again, is right here. Yeah, I'm gonna, like, I'll go through, like, other things, because this helped me make this.
Mm-hmm. All the context.
All of these things helped me make this. So these are Life magazines that I found in my attic. I'm pretty sure my sister bought them at a garage sale. And, funny enough, like, they talk about the, like, Vietnam War, which is what I researched. So I use those a lot. When I, like, am researching things, I prefer to use, like, tangible physical resources. Like, I'll go online and, like, look stuff up, but, like, I don't know. I feel like we need to go back to, like, reading physical books and physical media and stuff. I think that's really important, because we're losing it. It's, like, becoming really expensive. Like, getting a newspaper is so expensive now. Like, it's insane.
Supply and demand.
Exactly. And, like, I don't know. I think it's just because of, like, the field that I'm in. Like, I work in archives, so I constantly think about how we are losing stuff. But yeah, these really helped. And then, so over at the Frick Fine Arts Library, which is where I work, I was like, let me go through zines there to help me figure out, what are people, like, how are people making, like, zines that really look like books, And, like, yeah, like, a book could be anything. Like, a zine is a book, in my opinion. But I knew that I wanted it to be a bit more polished and a bit more elevated than the, like, foldable books that I was making before, especially because I have more funding now. And eventually I want to make something like this, which is more a book. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of that is just me thinking, like, something that looks like this is legit research and something that looks like this is not. But I mean, that's what we're taught and told. So it's, like, really hard to unlearn that stuff. But this was just one of, like, the zines. And I mean, this is essentially, like, sort of like a workbook that is more like, it takes on a more interactive approach to research and, like, having people digest information. So, like, a workbook was something that I initially had in mind. So, like, a workbook for me, which I didn't bring one with me, which I'm so peeved at, but a workbook for me is more so, like, I mean, interactive. Like, it's sort of like a journal, but also, like, there's information there, so you're, like, writing in and you're, like, taking away things as well, and then using, like, other resources for it. But yeah, so what else? There's also this pretty cool book. So wait, hold on. Vietnam.
I was gonna say, I don't even know where the
Yeah, Vietnam, Reflexes and Reflections by, hold on, their full name has to be in here. Eve Sinacchio.
That is a name.
Yeah, I may have mispronounced that. I'm so sorry if they're watching right now. But this is just one of the very many books that Frick had that I could use to help me with my research. So it features a bunch of artists from the Vietnam War who were making art abroad as well as when they came back. And a lot of it is pretty raw and harrowing stuff. This one in particular. So a lot of it, I, like, noticed that, like, a lot of the art is, like, of course, documenting the, like, atrocities being had and also their experiences and sort of like a historical record of, things that they were seeing, as, like, U.S., like, soldiers abroad. And I was like, yeah, like, that's history. But that's also art as well, So just, like, perpetually, like, thinking, like, what is art? What is history? How do you manifest that through, physical things? But yeah, this was a wonderful resource. I actually had a whole shelf at the library full of books. I probably at one point had checked out, like, 50 or so books from just that library.
Wow.
Yeah, when I see
like
something.
Like a book thief.
Yeah, I know. When I see something, I'm like, oh, I need it. And I still have a cart for, like, a lot of books that pertain to this research, but also for, like, other projects I'm doing. And yeah, so, and then last book on the table. So I also got this as a Christmas gift from Alexa, my sister. Shout out to her. I'm going to send this to her eventually, so she'll watch this. But she bought me this as well. So Alivia Pierce he may be, like, my great uncle or grandfather, great. He's a great something.
Yep.
He's a great something. And he was an artist. He was a folk artist, and a pretty, like, I mean, I'd like to say well-known one in, the U.S., and he specifically did, like, wood carvings. So, like, a lot of, I don't know if you can see this as well, but a lot of his work, I was like, a lot of this, like, I'm seeing connections constantly, like, seeing connections to all of the other things that I was looking at. But, yeah, a lot of his work is sort of like a historical recollection of things. So, I mean, he was alive, like, when the Kennedys were alive. Mm-hmm. So, like, he did, like, a little, like, carving of them, which I was like, whoa, like, that's crazy. or like a lot of like religious depictions. So he would capture like Jesus, you know, through wood, like, which I think is just gorgeous. I think is like gorgeous and beautiful. It's okay. It's just
Okay, we're good.
just breaking the spine, breaking it in a little bit. But yeah. So like MLK Jr. and the Kennedy brothers. So yeah, and a lot of his work.
It's very breathtaking.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I say that like I did it. But a lot of his work looks a lot like my papa's, who he passed away, unfortunately. But I mean, he's still with us somewhere, you know? But a lot of his work looks a lot like my papa's work. He was also a wood carver, and he is mentioned in this zine. So, which I'll talk about soon. We're getting there. But yeah, and my papa has, I don't have any pictures of it or anything. I don't have it with me, unfortunately. But he made a carving of the Last Supper, and it's very beautiful. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, so knowing that like I come from people who are inquisitive and creative focused and driven and very hardworking, and it made me feel a lot more assured of myself in terms of, you know, being at a PWI or being in a space where, you know, like I'm like, you know, like I'm working class, like, you know, like that's really hard to, you know, have such like access to things now suddenly, and also being around people who have had access to these things their entire lives, just like changes something in your brain, and just, I mean, yeah, like imposter syndrome. So
I was actually talking about this earlier. It's really hard to unlearn broke habits.
yeah, it is like literally it's so hard. I have some like, and like I'm not like on, you know, my papa or other people, but like having like a great depression mindset, like it's really hard to unlearn that, which like my papa like very much had one, which I understand because like yeah, he was old and like went through but yeah, like I think that's why like I'm a collector of things, like, you know, partially because like he kept everything.
And
Everything,
you can't
everything.
stand to lose these things. 'Cause
Yeah.
you may never get them again.
Exactly. So that's why like I'm very grateful for, you know, the Brackenridge Fellowship or like all the other things that I'm doing, because like I don't know, like I struggle to think of where else I would be without these things. And I mean, I'm sure of myself, and I know that like I work very hard for the things that I have. But yeah, like I'm just very grateful for all of this stuff. I'm grateful for Elijah, and I'm grateful for my papa and my dad, you know, being such an old head and like going off and like talking about random shit. But like, you know, like I love that. I eat that up. Like anytime that they're like a kickback, like, you know, my grandma, her cookouts, like sitting around in all these lawn chairs with all these old heads, you know, drinking beer and just like listening to them talk about stuff. You learn so much, and it's beautiful, and it's a sacred thing, truly.
That's a bar.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. With all of this context that we have on this table that went into creating Can I Kick It, what did this culmination of your research mean to you?
A lot. Okay, so I realized that I haven't talked about it very much, but this is Can I Kick It, which is like an ongoing zine series that I'm having. This is just the first edition, talking about the Vietnam War and how it like irrevocably affected the Black community, but I mean more specifically like African American men. And yeah, I made this, you know, with the Brackenridge Fellowship, summer of 2023. And this was a lot of hard work, a lot of reading things over and over again, and just consuming so much, I mean, media, and also just like conversations and interviews and images and just so much stuff. And yeah, so basically, it's like a lot of like photographs. I don't know if I'm showing it off really well.
We're gonna put this in post.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Don't worry about that.
But yeah, I'm very proud of this, and there were a lot of people that helped me make this, which I do mention them in my preface. So like, you know, my mentor at the time for this project, like Gretchen Bender, like helped me so much. If I didn't have her as a mentor, like I would have struggled to navigate through so much. As well as other people, like talking to my papa, because, you know, there's a little story in here that he was willing to share with me and be vulnerable about, which, I mean, vulnerable and papa being in the same sentence, like, is
They
crazy.
don't belong in the same room.
They don't belong. But he was, like, vulnerable enough to share his experience, you know, as, like, a soldier abroad, with me, which is, like, amazing. And other people as well, like my dad, he shared stuff, and a lot of other, like, old people that I talked to. It's all, like, this is a product of being vulnerable. Not, like, myself specifically, but, like, everyone involved in this process. And I'm very grateful, because it's very hard to be vulnerable about, like, pain and being hurt and how that manifests in your life. Yeah, but on the cover, it says, "A book not meant to be explored alone, but reimagined by many, made with the purpose of being worn down to the bone." So my zine in particular does not have like a spine or like a backing or anything. I put on a paperclip, and it's meant to be, you know, like moved around and shuffled around, and you're meant to take notes and annotate things if you want, and add things. Like this is like meant for communication and community and engagement and, you know, note taking. You're meant to learn from this, especially like, oh sorry, oof. But especially if you aren't too familiar with how the Vietnam War or even other, you know, like U.S. interventions abroad.
I almost
like,
said canon events.
Yeah, like you need to know this stuff because it's repeating over and over and over again. You know, like a lot of the things that I discuss in here, and you know, some things I had to like leave out for the sake of like this being too long. But you know, you can go on like a whole like research spiral, like learning about this stuff. I mean, that's what I did for an entire summer, which was very fun, by the way. But like a lot of people aren't afforded that time. Like a lot of people are not afforded the opportunity to research this stuff. So like it again, like it goes back to gratitude and being very thankful for, you know, the opportunity to do these things, because without funding, I wouldn't have been able to do this. Without talking to my grandfather, I wouldn't have been able to do this, or all of the other people that helped me make this. Yeah.
So to close off this first section, as we do every week, I want to ask you this. What is the best piece of life advice that you can give to the people watching and listening?
Oh man, life advice. Okay, so I would say, honestly, a lot. I have a lot of advice. But for me, like, what I would have liked to have heard in this journey and, like, the initial stages, or even, like, I don't know, maybe in high school when I was starting to get interested in this stuff, was, like, you're young. And sorry if this is, like, you know, so, like, candid, but, like, you're young, and you can, like, because that's okay. Because you're young, and, like, I mean, you don't know, like, how long you're going to be here for. You don't know how long other people in your life are going to be here for. Like, my grandfather passed, and, like, he passed away sooner than we all thought that he would, you know? And, like, other people that I've known had been just, like, taken away from me within, like, the blink of an eye. And, you know, whether or not, like, that's from, like, them dying or just, like, you know, people change. Things change. Situations change. Ideas change. Relationships change. But just, like, know that you are young. You do have time to figure out. And, like, nothing's, like, permanent, though. So it's sort of, like, hard to navigate that, but, like, just know that it's okay to navigate that. People are not permanent. Things aren't permanent. Like, I know that every day with the things that I, like, see and handle, like, in my job. Like, things are not permanent. These Life magazines are eventually going to be turned to dust. They disintegrate, but they're getting used. Like, people are taking notes. People are using them for learning and engaging with them. And I feel like people need to take on that understanding with their life, you know? Like, horrible things happen, and it's very hard to deal with that. And that can be difficult, like I said. But, like, everything happened to make the person that you are right now. So it's good not to dwell on the things that are very sorrowful and sad, because there's still so much more that you can do, because you don't know how long you're going to be here for, or other people are going to be here for. So just do things. You can up, and it's okay. Yeah. And also, like, practice gratitude. Like, and I know it sounds so dumb and, like, annoying, and, like, I'm sure, like, old people say that all the time, but, like, for me, like, what helps me get out of slumps, especially, like, research slumps, and, like, thinking, like, damn, like, what the am I doing? Like, I just spent, like, a week looking into something that, like, I probably shouldn't have, you know, it was rabbit hole. But, like, be grateful that you now have that knowledge, because you don't know when that's gonna come in again and be really important. So, like, for me, like, something that I do now, which is, I don't know, I guess it sounds kind of geeky and, like, silly, but, like, when I wake up, I write 5 things that I'm grateful for, like, in that moment. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, after having, like, lived an entire day, like, not fully, like, 24 hours, but, like, after waking up and experiencing shit all throughout the day, I write down another 5 things that I'm grateful for. And I have a little gratitude journal, and, like, I like it. I mean, before, like, I was, like, you know, this sounds dumb, but it was recommended to me by someone, so why not try it? But honestly, practicing gratitude has really changed my mindset about a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I guess those are 2 pieces of advice. But,
well,
yeah.
2 very important ones, especially with gratitude. I definitely practice that every single day. Mm-hmm. Like, with me being a second-generation immigrant, I know what my parents went through to get me to where I'm at. I could have been born on the other side of the world. I wouldn't be at the University of Pittsburgh right now. So I'm not going to let any bad moment here equate to me wasting my time here and not accomplishing what I can do and what all of my ancestors worked to get me in the position for, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, I just think about how, like, not too many generations away from me, like, before, like, we, like, couldn't do it. We couldn't go to school. We couldn't, like, do so much, you know? Like, there are people who are not too far removed from me that didn't know how to write or read. Like, this history is not, like, history is a cycle. It's a repeated cycle. And also didn't happen too long ago. You know?
This is actually it's not a complete side tangent, but a slight side tangent. Mm-hmm. I did just see a play on Ruby Bridges a couple weeks back, and what was hilarious was the actors were like, believe it or not, there are still some people who were alive for this. Anybody is 65 or older in the audience, and everybody stands up. And it's like, this really wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't. It literally was not. Like, my dad was literally in the Gulf War. Like, that wasn't that long ago. Like, the Vietnam War wasn't that long ago. And the is happening. So, just think about that. Mm-hmm. You know, sit and think about it.
I think that's a good place to leave off for this first section. So, getting into this week's Haven Artist Spotlight, we'll be playing the song Freak Power by Sunny Days and the Weathermen's most recent album, Sunny Days for President. I hope y'all enjoy.
Keep it quiet, keep it weird.
y'all enjoyed Freak Power by Sunny Days and the Weathermen. The link to their artist page will be in the description, and link for tickets at Haven. You'll be able to catch them this weekend at Haven. The link will be in the description of this episode, whether you're watching or listening online as well. Now, getting into the second portion of this week's episode, we'll be expanding on the topic of breaking down the Black experience. This week, Olivia will be speaking on the topic of Black queerness. I open the floor to you, Olivia.
Yeah, yay! I love talking about queerness. Okay, yeah, I mean, I just want to preface, like, I don't speak for every, like, Black queer person, and I would hope that, like, your idea, like, if you aren't, like, Black and queer, I would hope that if you're watching your idea, an image of, like, a Black queer person is not me, like, it looks very different. Queerness looks very different, Blackness looks very different, and we all don't think the same and have the same definitions, which, you know, I sort of talked about a little bit earlier, but the thing about queerness is that it's very fluid, and things mean different things for other people, things, you know, so keep that in mind.
So how did you find out what worked for you?
Honestly, like I said, like I'm a certified yapper. I love to yap. So just talking to a lot of like queer people and really expanding like my knowledge about, you know, what queerness looks like in the Black community, or, you know, like for white people sometimes, I guess. Or, you know, just like a worldwide perspective of like queerness, and then like what it looks like, you know, in like a more theoretical, analytical approach and stuff. Just widening my knowledge by talking to people and like communication, and, you know, what community looks like in that regard then, like, really helped me.
So when did you find out that you were queer? And I guess I mean this in the most positive way possible. What were the tells?
Okay, well, that's kind of hard. I feel like that, I mean, in college, once I got here, I was like, yeah, like, I'm definitely something. But I would say, like, maybe in, like, middle school, like, I was, like, I mean, I've never formally, like, come out, because, like, for me, like, I don't really care. And, like, also, like, a lot of people...
It's been, like, a gradual thing.
Yeah, like, it's, like, I've never had, like, a party for it. But, I mean, like, people have always known, like, I mean, yeah. People have always known, and that hasn't always been, like, the best thing, you know? Like, growing up, like, I was called, like, slurs. So, and, you know, I remember going on my, like, home computer and, like, looking up, like, what is this? Like, what does the D slur mean? You know? Because, like, I didn't know. Like, I didn't even know what, like, queer was when someone called it to me. And then I was, oh, it's been used as a slur, you know? So it's like I said, like, queer has a lot of different definitions for people, whether or not you are queer. And that goes with, like, other words, you know, as well, especially slurs. So, which we're not going to get into slur discourse, because I don't like to touch that. But, yeah, I feel like I've known for a really long time. But, I mean, I don't necessarily like labels too much, just because, like, they seem, like, super specific. But I would say, like, I most identify with, like, queer. I mean, like, people are attracted to what they're attracted to. Like, and I'm not, like, okay, that could be taken out of context really weird. If you're attracted to kids, that's like pedophilia, and that's disgusting. But I mean, like, I don't have a preference. If you are nice and you meet some other expectations that I have for you, then, like, yeah, we could, like, kick it, I guess, you know? But, like, that's just me, and that's just, like, me as, like, a queer person. For another queer person, it could look very different. But I genuinely don't so about, like, you know, if I like you, then, like, you're cool.
So one topic that I had for discussion is the difference between cultural queerness and queerness. Could you go a little bit into that?
Okay, yeah. So, like, I feel like this is sort of, like, this is discourse that I've seen online, but, like, you know, being culturally, like, gay over, like, or, like, queer than just, like, being gay or queer, or, like, another, like, you know, identifying label. But I feel like for me, like, I didn't come from a family where, like, there were other gay people or out gay people, let's say.
Potentially pre-gay.
What?
Potentially pre-gay.
Yeah. Or, I mean, like, you know, like a lot of people, like I said, like I didn't come out. Like I just was like, yeah, like I'm popping out with a girl like tonight, you know? Like I guess like, you know, I just did that. And I guess that's partially because like people already do and like didn't really care, and like it was more of like an unspoken thing, like okay, like that's cool because like straight people don't come out. But like that's just like, again, like that's something that I think and believe. And I understand the importance of, you know, coming out for other people. Just like for me, that's just something that I chose not to do. But yeah, like I necessarily wasn't raised in a queer household or like, you know, a gay household, or, you know, there were a lot of things I had to go on Google for. So I was on Tumblr a lot during that time. So a lot of people on Tumblr like
the Wild
raised
West.
me. Yeah, it's a wild west. But I had a lot of like queer like friends like growing up, you know, and like especially in middle school, because I feel like middle school for me, like when I was in middle school, and like I'm sure for you because we're like kind of the same age, like it was a time, you know, like we had Vine. Like
we did have Vine.
We had Vine. We didn't have
from
TikTok.
Us.
It was amazing. Like BuzzFeed was popping. Like I would take BuzzFeed quizzes like at lunch all the time, you know? And so many people, like that was a time when like people could really like, you know, say like, oh yeah, like I'm gay. And like it was like a vibe. I mean, not saying that things have changed, but it was a lot more like accepting, I guess, compared to other times in the past maybe.
I feel like the cultural zeitgeist now has actually shifted back a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of socially conservative nature.
Yeah. You know, and that's like sort of what I'm talking about in terms of like, you know, being culturally queer, like, you know, being in an environment, you know, like my friend group, like in middle school, like or like even in high school and, you know, now, like, you know, being around other queer people, like that is community. And a lot of people were not necessarily familiar with that, who also identify as like queer or gay or something. And I feel like no diss to other people who like, you know, obviously didn't have the means to have, you know, like a friend group that I had full of like queer people or people like, you know, that were like gay or like lesbian or bisexual. Like, you know, for me, my journey started out from, you know, being bisexual to like, I don't know. I mean, I guess like I'm pansexual or something, but I mean, I like the term queer because, you know, it's like an identity, like, you know, sexual identity, but also it could be like, I mean, queerness for me is more of like a theoretical, like daily practice and ideology. But like I said before, like other people, it's just a label, and there's
a spectrum.
There is a spectrum, and they aren't interested in the scholarship of it. They're not interested in the community of it. And, you know, teach their own. If you want to like have a friend group that, or be friends with people who are not gay, like that's fine. Like that's dope. You know, but yeah, like having an environment like that in your childhood and your youth, and yeah, just really helped me navigate my own journey because I was like, oh, I'm not alone, you know, and we can talk about this stuff. And I felt very accepted. And I know a lot of people don't have the opportunity, but I'm, like I said, like I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for the the very raw conversations that I would have on Tumblr with people, you know, like as a kid, or just like going into the lunchroom and like shooting the with all my friends. It was so fun. Or like in, you know, high school too, like we would do that. And it was a vibe. And like I realized like, you know, later on, like it was because I had a safe environment to do those things. I think a lot of that has to go into being like, you know, culturally queer. And like, as opposed to like not, you know? Yeah. But I think it's like, you know, if you're queer, like for me, like that's like, okay, you're ACAB, you know? Like, cause it's the same.
There's a lot of intersectionality with that.
Yeah. There's a lot of intersection, you know, like you're like, if you are queer, you understand class struggles. Like you understand so much, you know? And I mean, a lot of people, they're just not interested in that. And you should be. You should know about the people that came before you that, you know, enabled you to be in the comfort of space right now. And there's so much scholarship about that stuff and literature and amazing people in the field right now. I mean, of like academia who are writing about this stuff, because there's not much written, or like there is, but it's never really been recognized. So yeah, you should know, like I said, like history matters, know your roots, and know why you're able to be the person that you are today.
So 2 questions to close off this week's conversation. So this stands as a resource, of course, for Black people, so that we have a resource in terms of how to interact and how to be more in tune with ourselves. But this also serves as a resource for allyship, for people who don't have the same shared experience at all, just so that they can be better towards people like you and like me. What can you pass on for people looking to be allies, first for queerness in general, but secondly for Black queer people?
I don't mean to laugh. This is serious. I would say, like, a lot of people, like, if you don't know something, like, look it up. If you don't know something, like, do your research about it. And I'm not, like, of course, like, if you don't, like, have access to that stuff, like, I understand. Like, I'm not, like, yeah, like, there's so many barriers to knowledge. Like, I very much know that. But, like, don't rely on, like, your queer friends or, like, queer people that you know to teach you. Because, like, I'm not your mom. I'm not going to teach you stuff. And that goes for, like, you know, being an ally to, like, Black people, I guess. Like, what the is allyship? Like, you need to know you can't just, like, share a black square on social media and then be like, yeah. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. And you don't, like, you're not doing anything. What are you doing in your community? You know? Like, ask yourself these questions. And I swear, because I'm swearing because I feel so passionate about this stuff. Like, don't rely on other people to do the work for you. Like, you have to do the work. Like, period. Like, you need to do the work yourself. I like, that's how I learned so much, by doing the work myself. Like, by reading, like, please read. Like, to have the ability to read is amazing.
It's a privilege in itself.
It's a privilege. So go read, you know, and I'm such an advocate for tangible things and books and, you know, like, just read. Please read, and please listen to people who, you know, like, are, like, Black and queer, you know, like, we kind of know what the talking about, and we, like, can offer so much, but we're not here to educate you. You need to, you know, look within yourself to do that, and really, you know, ask yourself these questions, like, you know, things that I've raised, like, what is art? What is history? You know, what's my place in that? And, you know, like, how can I better help people, you know, and learn? Like, how do I learn? And yeah, and Reddit. Like, Reddit's cool too, because I get a lot of, like, good book recommendations on Reddit.
I love Reddit.
Yeah, I love Reddit. And I get my news, like, sometimes from there. Like, yeah. Shout out to whoever. Actually, Reddit can be really bad.
It can.
It can be really bad. So, just refer to books if you can. Be inquisitive. Ask questions. Like, be vulnerable with your friends who are queer and, like, Black, you know. I mean, don't, like, put us in, like, horrible situations where we, like, have to carry emotional baggage. Like, that sucks. I don't, like, say crazy but, like, you know, it's okay to, like, not know something, but just, like, be willing to accept the accountability for not knowing that, you know, like, for being ignorant, like, if you are, like, because some people, like, you know, don't know like, I didn't know like,
and then you learned.
Yeah, then I learned, and I still don't know so that sort of goes back to, like, you know, being grateful for the fact that you, like, you have the means to look up stuff, but also just, like, being like, yeah, like, I and I'm young, and there's still so much that I can work on, you know, like, and also, like, you can pivot and, like, do stuff, like, you can do so much, like, don't get, like, stuck on you need to get unstuck from
I think that's a great place to leave off this week's episode. So for everybody watching and listening, there will be a bibliography of Olivia's work in the description.
Maybe not a bit. Maybe not a bib.
There will be something.
There's going to be something.
There will be something in the description. All things Alivia will be in the description below. This has been another incredible episode of the Let's Talk Social Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Ian Gahende. This is the incredible Alivia Pierce.
Yeah.
And we are signing off. Peace out, y'all.
Wait, can I
Yes, you can. You can.
Okay. I don't have any more shout outs. I wish I could shout out everyone. Shout out to my dad, who I will be sending this to him. And wish I could send this to my papa, but he's probably somewhere upstairs, yeah, and I hope everyone's having a lovely Black History Month.
Amen.
Yeah, and I hope that people are giving you money. Post your Cash App, post your Venmo, and also wear cool shirts. I thrifted the shirt and paid $1 for it, and it says "Nah, Rosa Parks." So yeah, stay cool and learn.
That was a great buzzer beater.
And be gay. But if you're not gay, that's gay, I guess.
Well, anyways, y'all, that was, like I said, excellent buzzer beater. This is Ian Gahende. This is the incredible Alivia Pierce, and we are signing off. Peace out, y'all.